So worksheet number 7 is Pythagorean Theorem. So by definition, Pythagorean Theorem is not a squared plus b squared equals c squared, okay? Until you establish that a and b are your two legs and then c is your hypotenuse, which is the longest side, okay? Once that is established, then you can say that Pythagorean Theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, okay? Now, let's get to it. And first thing first is tell me if the current triangle is a right triangle, okay? Means by Pythagorean theorem. So let's try number 1. You get a triangle that has sides 4, 3, and 5. And you got to tell me if it's a right or not. By saying right or not, I mean if this is a right angle or the triangle has a right angle. Okay, so let's try it. A plus B, so you get your longer side is always going to be your C, and two other ones is going to be either A or B or A, doesn't matter, they're interchangeable. So let's try it. A squared plus B squared equals C squared, which, let's try this. 4 squared plus B is 3, right? 3 squared equals, last side is the longest one, 5 squared. 4 squared is 16 plus 3 squared is 9 equals 5 squared, which is 25. One more step, 16 plus 9 is 25 equals 25. The answer is correct. Yes, that is indeed a right triangle. Number two. You already have the visual in front of you. There's a triangle with 3 sides, 8, 9, and 6. So let's say our A squared plus B squared. Actually, I'm going to write down A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Now, your two smaller sides are 6. Let's say 6 squared plus 8 squared. Okay, should it equal to 9 squared? Okay, 6 squared is 36 plus 8 squared is 64 equals 9 squared, which is 81. Now, 36 plus 64 is 100 equals 81. Now, that does not make sense. So the answer, first of all, it's not equal, and the answer is now no, it's not a right triangle. Number 11, we have a right triangle, which is nice. We know that Pythagorean theorem will work here because it's a right triangle. Let's label the sides, okay? A, B, and C. C must always be the longest side, and A and B are the two shorter ones, and doesn't matter which you call A or B. I'm going to call this A, I'll call this B, okay? So just FYI, our A equals 8, our B equals 10, and our C equals, we need to find it. Let's rewrite the formula. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So now we just need to plug in the numbers, okay? Now you gotta just plug in numbers. So how you do that? Instead of A, you gotta plug in 8 squared. Plus B squared is, B is 10, right? So it's going to be 10 squared equals C squared. We don't know what C is yet. Now, 8 squared is 64 plus 10 squared is 100 equals C squared. Okay? So 64 plus 100 is going to be 164 equals C squared. We get to that part, this is awesome. If you can get to this part, this is great already, okay? One more step and let the calculator do the work for you. Now, what we can do is now take square root of both sides if you have a square root like this. So what you can do is you can take square root of this and square root of that. What that trick does is it cancels out the square here. So the square root, so to speak, cancels out the square. So it's just gonna be C. Now use your calculator to figure out what 100 square root of 164 is. Older model calculators, or I would call them not so smart calculators, you gotta type in the number first. You type in 164. Then you hit the square root key. Okay? In our case, the answer is 12.8 units. That's the answer. So C equals 12.8, okay? That's that. For number 18, now we need to find the leg of a right triangle when we're given a hypotenuse and another leg. How do I know if it's a hypotenuse? Two legs, they form a perpendicular. That's how you know this are the two legs. They're the shorter sides. Hypotenuse is always going to be the opposite of that 90-degree angle. Okay, that side opposite of 90-degree angle of that box right here. So let's start substituting things in. Instead of A, you're going to write down this value 8. So it's going to be 8 squared plus B squared, because we don't know what B is, equals C squared. Instead of C, we write down 12 squared. Now use your calculator so you can find out that 8 squared is 64 plus B squared equals 144. Now we need to isolate the constant here. Subtract 64 from both sides. Okay, so you're looking at B squared equals 144 minus 64 equals 80. Now you do the trick where you square root both sides to get rid of the square. So now we're just going to look at B equals, and use a calculator. Okay, use a calculator to find out that what it is. Again, it's 8.9. Okay, 8.9. That's the answer. B equals 8.9. We found the missing leg. For number 19, we're looking at a similar situation as number 18. Here's your last example. Again, identify your sides. A, B are your two legs. They form the 90-degree angle. C is your longest side. C is 10. A is 5. B is unknown. I don't know that. So 5 squared plus B squared equals 10 squared. Okay, so now once again it's 25 plus B squared equals 100. To undo the 25 from both sides, we subtract, all right? 25 from both sides, here you go. Now you're looking at B squared equals 75. Now you're going to take the square root of both sides. Square root, square root. This square root cancels out the B, which is now just cancel out the square rather, which is just B equals, and now use your calculator to find out the result. So the answer here is 8.7. And sure enough, if you plug in an 8.7 here, you can see that this is small side, this is also smaller side, and it's 10 is the largest side here.